As seen in this time-lapse video, some snakes can eat things many times their diameter by unhinging their jaws. Tree frogs build a nest of foam by beating their legs. The marsupial frog carries its eggs in a pouch on its back. The gastric breeding frog swallows its eggs and regurgitates hatched young.
When elephants come upon the remains of another elephant, they grow tense and approach it cautiously. They quietly caress the bones, possibly attempting to identify the dead elephant. Elephants do not react this way when they encounter the remains of other animals, and this emotional display is one of the great mysteries of elephant behavior.
Each spring and fall, many types of waterfowl undergo spectacular migrations covering more than 2,000 miles. To find their way, they interpret a variety of clues, including the positions of the sun and the stars. Migratory birds often travel in V formations so that each bird is lifted by the updrafts produced by the bird in front. Hummingbirds have a special relationship with certain flowering plants. The flowers provide the hummingbird with nectar for food. When a hummingbird dips its long bill into a flower, the bill becomes dusted with pollen, some of which is transferred to the next flower the hummingbird visits. By transferring pollen from one flower to another, the hummingbird assists in plant reproduction.
Consider the goods and services that domestic animals provide to people. They nourish them and clothe them with their hides and wool. They carry them and their goods. They pull plows in wagons and sleds. They guard houses and farms, herds and flocks. With superior senses and strength, they assist people in many ways. They keep us company, brightening our world with their friendship.
Every 2 to 4 years, female sea turtles come ashore to lay their eggs. In the protection of darkness, a female digs a shallow pit in the sand, deposits about 100 eggs, then covers the nest with sand before returning to sea. About 2 months later, the turtle hatchlings emerge. Instinctively, they scramble to the sea, guided by light reflected off the water or an internal magnetic compass. When they reach the water, the turtles enter the surf, then ride the undertow out to sea, where they probably drift with floating seaweed until they are strong enough to fend for themselves. Monitor lizards live in Africa, Southern Asia, and Australia. The family includes more than 30 species, including the largest lizard in the world, the Komodo island monitor, popularly known as the Komodo dragon. Despite their lumbering appearance, monitors can move with significant speed for short distances. Monitors sometimes hide in brush or tall grass and lunge at unsuspecting prey ambling by. A monitor can open its jaws wider than its head, enabling it to swallow its prey in large chunks or even whole.
Moray eels are found in warm seas throughout the world. During the day, they hide in the crevices of rocks and reefs, darting out to surprise their prey. Moray eels use their large mouths, complete with razor-sharp teeth and powerful jaws, to seize unsuspecting fish as they swim by. But the moray eel is not always successful at catching its prey. Many sea creatures have evolved mechanisms that protect them from moray eels and other predators. Pufferfish, for example, inflate with air or water when they are threatened, making them too large to be consumed.
A baby kangaroo, or joey, peers out of its mother's pouch. When newly born, a joey finds its way unassisted into the pouch and to a teat. It stays in the pouch until it is 5 to 9 months old. When it finally emerges at 6 to 10 months, it may still return to the pouch at any sign of danger. It stays close by its mother, continuing to suckle until it's 12 to 18 months old. Then it separates from its mother to live an independent life. The giant clam lives attached to a coral reef. It's a filter feeder, extracting tiny organisms from the water that it pumps in and out of its mouth. The brown stripes are algae that live within the clam's tissues and convert sunlight into energy for themselves and the clam. The bright blue spots are light-sensitive cells that alert the clam to passing shadows. At any sign of danger, the clam quickly closes its shell. Clams have both male and female sex organs. They expel sperm into the surrounding water, followed sometime later by eggs. The sperm mature more quickly than the eggs, which are usually fertilized by the sperm from other clams.
Penguins are flightless birds that spend most of their lives in water, where they are excellent swimmers. They search for food while swimming near the water's surface and then dive swiftly to pursue prey, including small fish and crustaceans. Penguins have streamlined, barrel-like bodies that reduce drag in the water. Their wings, modified to form thin, stiff flippers, provide propulsion while swimming. Penguins only return to land to mate, nest, rear young, and molt. Although penguins are quite nimble in the water, on land they waddle awkwardly. In icy or snowy areas, penguins toboggan on their stomachs, paddling themselves forward with their wings. Penguin chicks hatch with only a thin covering of downy feathers, and they are unable to regulate their own body temperatures or feed themselves. Parents sit on the chicks or partially cover them to transfer their own heat to the chicks, in a practice known as brooding. Most penguins socialize in breeding colonies that can number up to several 100,000 pairs.
To look at them, you'd never know it, but these ants are fungus farmers. The leafcutter ants of South America are the epitome of teamwork. Living in colonies of several 100,000 to 1 million, each ant has a specific role to play within its colony. And each one of them depends on this fungus to survive. The relationship between the ants and the fungus is exclusive. Neither one is found in nature without the other. The ants cut discs out of leaves and carry them to underground nests. Then they shred them and use them for growing the fungus. Inside the huge subterranean fungus gardens, thousands of ants work to cultivate the fungus for food. The ants cannot digest the plant molecules in the leaves, but the fungus can, so it grows and provides a source of food for the ants. The fungus benefits from this arrangement too. The ants provide it with a constant supply of food. Each ant in the leafcutter ant colony has a specific job to do and knows how to do it instinctively. The largest ants are the gatherers. They brave the outside world to cut the discs out of leaves. Then they carry them back to the nest. The smaller ants take over. They shred the discs into minute pieces, mix them with their saliva, and add them to the garden. The smallest ants care for the fungus garden. They transplant bits of fungus from an older part of the garden to the newer part to promote growth. They add their saliva to the garden and walk over it constantly. The ants harvest the fungus before it begins to sprout into mushrooms. They gather it and feed it to their larvae or eat it themselves. In this amazing colony, each individual type of ant works for the good of the group, and fungi are an essential element of these ants' survival. This symbiotic relationship benefits both the ants and the fungi. Nature is full of such relationships, and the survival of many animal, plant, and fungus species depends on them. In every ecosystem, living things are linked by the food they eat and the energy they get from the food. These links, taken together, make up the food web. Food chains within these webs often involve predator and prey relationships. The grasslands of Serengeti National Park in Tanzania are home to a great diversity of animals, each dependent on the next for survival. Here, where the climate is dry and the soil is poor, grass collects energy from the sun and kicks off each food chain. Plant eaters like these gazelles feed on the grass, and in doing so, they help even more grass grow back in its place. The large number of plant-eating animals found in the Serengeti provides food for many predators. Each predator has its own techniques for hunting prey. Reaching speeds of more than 60 miles per hour, cheetahs are fast enough to run down gazelles. Lions aren't so fast and tend to sneak up on their prey with little warning. Hyenas can bring down animals more than 3 times their weight. One zebra yields plenty of food for a group. Most of the time, these predators work together, but in the end, they often compete with each other for the catch. Hyenas and cheetahs are fierce competitors. Not only do they steal each other's food, they also attack each other's cubs. In a pinch, these predators become clever scavengers. Large predators need to eat less frequently than other animals because their bodies use up energy at a much slower rate. Anything they leave behind gets broken down and eventually returned to the soil as nutrients for plants. The food chain always starts as photosynthesis and ends in decay.
Breaking through the sea floor, volcanoes erupted some 3 to 5 million years ago and created the Galapagos Islands, 600 miles from any other land. Animals living in such splendid isolation changed over time, adapting to the circumstances found here and nowhere else. Such change is called evolution, and marine iguanas, the only diving lizards in the world, are prime examples of evolution in action. Scientists believe that marine iguanas were once land-based like all other lizards. Perhaps violent storms swept them to sea and far away from their native South America. Fortunately, iguanas have a tolerance for salt water and are able to go without food for long stretches. These traits kept them alive for the long voyage to the islands. Barren volcanic rock offers up next to nothing for marine iguanas to eat. These animals looked back to the sea for food. No doubt they started at the water's edge, eating crustaceans, algae, and the occasional grasshopper. Most iguanas still feed here, taking advantage of exposed reefs close to shore. But the more adventurous, typically male marine iguanas, go diving for dinner. This unique adaptation allows them to take advantage of algae salad as far as 40 feet below the surface. A typical dive lasts 5 to 10 minutes, but iguanas can stay under for an hour. All that diving chills iguanas. They lose as much as 10 degrees in the water, so sunbaths are an essential part of the daily routine. Then there are the salt showers. Because of their salty diet, marine iguanas have developed salt glands above their eyes, connected to their nostrils. They just sneeze the salt away. How successful are these customized critters? Their numbers are some 300,000 strong. Call someone a reptile, and they aren't likely to take it as a compliment. But reptiles, including turtles, lizards, crocodiles, and snakes, have been around longer than we have. Scaly skin and cold-bloodedness must have their advantages. Here's one. A reptile's scaly skin helps it keep from drying out. Amphibians, like frogs and toads, are far more limited in their travels. Their moist skin makes them completely dependent on water, and they rarely live too far from it. Scales have other advantages. Snakes use them to help grip the ground. In most snakes, belly scales form overlapping plates. The plate's loose edges catch the ground and help produce a snake's legless glide. In turtles and tortoises, some scales have evolved into armored shells. Land-based tortoises, like the enormous Galapagos variety, have high domed shells too big to bite. Sea turtles' body design makes moving awkward on land. Their shells are streamlined for underwater mobility. Under that scaly skin, reptiles are vertebrates with a host of unique adaptations. Crocodilian design works well in water. The long tail makes swimming easy. And a flap in the back of the throat keeps water from rushing into the lungs, allowing crocodiles to breathe underwater. A few smaller land-based reptiles, like the horned lizards, are well adapted to desert life. With few places to hide, horned lizards' camouflage helps them fade into the background, and an impressive array of spikes discourages predators when the camouflage isn't enough. As varied and complex as the habitats they occupy, reptile species outnumber mammals. And though we refer to them as cold-blooded, their blood may be as warm or warmer than ours. The term means only that reptiles can't regulate their own temperatures and use behavioral means to heat up or cool off. Call someone a reptile, and they aren't likely to take it as a compliment. But reptiles, including turtles, lizards, crocodiles, and snakes, have been around longer than we have. Scaly skin and cold-bloodedness must have their advantages. Here's one. A reptile's scaly skin helps it keep from drying out. Amphibians, like frogs and toads, are far more limited in their travels. Their moist skin makes them completely dependent on water, and they rarely live too far from it. Scales have other advantages. Snakes use them to help grip the ground. In most snakes, belly scales form overlapping plates. The plate's loose edges catch the ground and help produce a snake's legless glide. In turtles and tortoises, some scales have evolved into armored shells. Land-based tortoises, like the enormous Galapagos variety, have high domed shells too big to bite. Sea turtles' body design makes moving awkward on land. Their shells are streamlined for underwater mobility. Under that scaly skin, reptiles are vertebrates with a host of unique adaptations. Crocodilian design works well in water. The long tail makes swimming easy. And a flap in the back of the throat keeps water from rushing into the lungs, allowing crocodiles to breathe underwater. A few smaller land-based reptiles, like the horned lizards, are well adapted to desert life. With few places to hide, horned lizards' camouflage helps them fade into the background, and an impressive array of spikes discourages predators when the camouflage isn't enough. As varied and complex as the habitats they occupy, reptile species outnumber mammals. And though we refer to them as cold-blooded, their blood may be as warm or warmer than ours. The term means only that reptiles can't regulate their own temperatures and use behavioral means to heat up or cool off. 150 million years ago, a creature called Archaeopteryx took to the skies. Part reptile, part bird, the creature had teeth, solid bones, and reptilian claws. But it had something else too. Archaeopteryx had feathers. Over the next 75 million years, feathers and flight improved. Birds lost their teeth, and most grew hollow bones, which reduced weight and made flight easier. Flight may have evolved to help birds escape predators, catch fast prey, or to make it easier to move from place to place. No one really knows. One thing is certain. All 8,700 species of modern birds have feathers. Made of keratin, the same protein found in hair, feathers apparently evolved from the scales of reptilian ancestors. A typical bird of prey has over 7,000 feathers. Small, light feathers, refined for flight, help eagles catch air. But even flightless birds have feathers. Penguins pack 70 stiff feathers in a square inch. These feathers provide waterproofing and cover an insulating layer of blubber. Feather colors are usually provided by different pigments. Black, gray, and brown birds have melanin to thank for their color. Scarlet ibises owe this splashy red to the keratin found in the shrimp and other crustaceans they eat. All feathered creatures lay eggs too. But nest-building styles range from simple to elaborate. The young of some birds, like ducks, are precocial, able to feed themselves as soon as they're born. Other young birds, like this albatross, are altricial and must wait to be fed by parents. The search for food takes many birds on annual migrations. Hummingbirds may fly hundreds of miles from nesting sites as far north as Washington State to wintering grounds in Mexico, making the trip to and from each year. Such bold adaptive skills have allowed birds to find homes in most habitats on Earth. It's fall in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, and the rivers are choked with salmon. Thousands of these fish are returning to lay eggs in the place they were born. Salmon get their start in these rivers. The cold, clean, and well-oxygenated water is vital to their initial survival. But soon after they're born, they leave this fresh water for a life in the sea. Unlike most freshwater fish, salmon move freely between the two environments. A salmon's brain sends hormones to its body so it can adjust to changes in salt content. The fish spend as many as 8 years swimming in the sea, then head back to fresh water to lay their eggs. Most return to the exact stream where they were born. Scientists think they rely on the Earth's magnetic field to guide them in the ocean. Then their sharp sense of smell directs them to the right stream. It's a treacherous, often uphill journey, but these salmon are built to take it. They navigate around tricky obstacles, jump through waterfalls, and log hundreds of miles on their way. If that weren't enough, they also have to dodge dozens of predators in search of a good meal. Traveling against the river's current can be exhausting, but a calm pool behind the rocks provides a good place to rest. Near the end of the trip, salmon stop eating and their skin turns red. The pigment that colors their flesh moves into their skin as they use up stored fat. Finally, they reach a shallow location ideal for laying eggs. The females dig a nest in the gravel, while the males guard against predators. A female salmon can lay more than 3,000 eggs at a time. The males protect the eggs until the females die. This journey marks the end of a salmon's life. Worn out and starving, both males and females die soon after spawning. As their bodies decompose, they provide nutrients for the next generation. After about 4 months, the salmon eggs hatch. The young fish spend several months in the river before heading to the sea. This amazing cycle begins all over again. Fossils are the remains of things that were once alive. Scattered across every continent, they teach us about the history of the Earth and provide evidence supporting the evolution of life. But finding a fossil isn't easy. As paleontologist Robert Bakker explains, it requires a trained eye.
The most important thing to look for when you're out digging dinosaurs is the stuff over there, in the periphery of your vision. So when you're digging dinosaurs, you've got to have a sort of 360-degree ecological vision. Look at everything. Be aware of everything.
Paleontologists travel through deserts, frozen tundra, oceans, and underground caves to uncover the remains of ancient and extinct species. The job can be risky, yet finding a fossil is only the beginning. Once it's discovered, paleontologists must carefully extract it from the ground. This excavation process can take days.
Put over there. So here's the other nostril right here. Yeah. I'm digging in the nose.
They must be cautious not to damage any remains. Once removed from the ground, the fossil is wrapped in aluminum foil and plastered burlap to keep it safe during travel. In the lab, the wrap is removed and the fossil gets a thorough cleaning. The original fossil is too heavy and fragile to display, so scientists make a reproduction. They brush rubber on the outside of the fossil to form a mold. The hardened mold is removed and filled with resin to make a copy of the original fossil. At this stage, paleontologists also create models of the missing parts. As Dr. Paul Sereno explains, they make the most out of what they have.
We had enough to wish we had more. We had enough to say we could take this and make a skeleton out of it. We hunted for that skull. We wanted the skull. We didn't have it, but we had enough of the animal, the limbs, and enough of the backbone to judge its size correctly and to get a picture of what was a very agile animal.
The reconstructed bones are now ready to piece together. They're placed onto a steel frame that provides support. The shape of the frame gives the completed skeleton the appearance of motion. Putting together a full skeleton is a tremendous challenge. With pieces missing and sometimes only fragments of a bone to work with, mistakes are not uncommon.
Well, my mother sometimes rattles my cage by saying, well, Bob, you scientists, you always make things up. You get a single bone, you build a whole animal, you got the wrong head, the wrong tail, tail on the wrong end, head on the wrong end. That does happen on occasion. But almost always it's another scientist another anatomist who catches the mistake and corrects it.
In most cases, paleontologists eventually get it right. With a lot of skill and a little bit of luck, the results are extraordinary. The resurrection of a species that became extinct millions of years ago. Under the surface of the water in Truk Lagoon lives the largest coral reef in Micronesia. Like all coral reefs, this one began with single polyps, small coral animals best seen at night when they stretch out their tentacles to feed on floating plankton. Polyps attach themselves to hard surfaces and excrete a cup-like skeleton for a home. In Truk Lagoon, the wrecks of Japanese ships sunk in a battle during World War II laid the foundation for one of the most diverse ecosystems on Earth. This blue chromis fish lives in a gun barrel. Over the last half-century, thousands of coral skeletons became the hills and valleys of a reef. Other animals move into the reef seeking food and shelter. Coral reefs house over 25% of all marine life. Commercial fish, like this grouper, live in reefs, and some sharks rely on the reefs for food. Coral reefs help protect other habitats too. Truk Lagoon's reef serves as a buffer for coastal mangrove forests. Sand roughed away from the reef makes soil for the roots of the mangrove trees. In return, mangroves filter sediment from the land and make great foraging habitat for reef creatures. Mud skippers are fish that live in and out of the water. Reinforced forefins make workable arms, and mud skippers elbow their way between watering holes exposed at low tides. Bulging gill pouches allow them to breathe out of water. Fiddler crabs dine in the mangroves too, before scurrying back to the shelter of the reef. Like all the Earth's ecosystems, coral reefs have suffered from human activities. Dredging and filling for land development, like runways, have hurt some reefs. Other corals die when ocean temperatures rise from global warming. Bleached skeletons are all that remain. Although coral reefs cover a tiny fraction of the ocean, they are the rainforests of the sea. Diverse, fragile, vital. Meet the largest of the world's terrestrial predators, polar bears and Kodiak brown bears. Polar bears are among the few mammals living in the Arctic, and they're well dressed for the weather. Along with a thick layer of body fat, their water-repellent coats insulate them from the cold air and water. Transparent hairs have a hollow core, allowing sunlight to warm up the bear's black skin. Polar bear fur has no white pigment. The reflection of the sun makes the bears look white. Polar bears generally live near open water, where they hunt for their steady diet of ringed and bearded seals. The animals smell food as far as 100 miles away, and find seals denning under 3 feet of snow. Swimming for a meal is no problem for polar bears. Powerful forepaws and webbing between their toes work like paddles. In fact, polar bears spend so much time in the water, they're officially classified as marine mammals in some countries. Polar bears typically give birth to twins. The cubs live on their mother's high-fat milk while she fasts in the den through the winter. In spring, the bear family makes short trips from the den, while the cubs adjust to the outside temperatures. Then, they make their way to the sea. Cubs stay with their mother for 2 years before heading out on their own. These big cubs are approaching independence. Kodiak bear cubs stay with their mother for 3 years before moving on to a life spent largely alone on a refuge in Kodiak Island, Alaska. Full-grown Kodiak bears, the largest of all brown bears, tolerate one another's company only during mating season and salmon season. The bears rely on the annual salmon feast to build fat for the rest of the year. When the fish are thick, the bears get picky. Some prefer the skin, others go for the roe. Fox and other scavengers are happy to eat the leftovers. Neither Kodiak bears nor polar bears are endangered. Polar bears number somewhere between 20,000 to 40,000 in the wild. About 3,000 Kodiaks rule their Alaskan island. These majestic predators have no natural enemies. And while both are still hunted by man, laws and the remote locations they've claimed as kingdoms offer some protection. Mammals, from giant whales to small mice to great apes, much like ourselves, are among the most advanced of Earth's creatures. All mammals share 2 traits. We feed our young with mother's milk, and we have hair, more or less. Mammals nursing their young produce fewer offspring than other animals, but the youngsters have a much higher rate of survival than newly hatched birds, reptiles, and insects. This young orangutan will stay with its mother for 8 years. Hair, like the coats worn by these high alpine huanacos, offers mammals another advantage. Hair and the sweat glands that come with it helps mammals stay warm in cold climates. Over time, mammals have moved into nearly all of Earth's habitats. Polar bears have adapted to life in the Arctic, where the inhospitable cold makes fur coats essential. Marine mammals, like porpoises and humpback whales, thrive in cold oceans. They still have a few hairs around their mouths, but a more efficient underwater insulator is a thick layer of fat, keeping heat in and cold out. Elephants battle heat. Their skin, covered in fine hairs, is wrinkled, making it easy to trap cooling mud in the creases. Spots on the coats of leopards and cheetahs help them hide. Their fur works to camouflage the big cats stalking prey in tall grasses. There are 7,500 species of reptiles and amphibians. and some 8,600 species of birds. Only 4,100 species of mammals exist, but they dominate the land and sea. Mammals have evolved with greater speed and agility than most other animals. Limbs that are lined up to support weight and drive mammals forward help browsing mammals run from mammalian predators armed with tooth and claw. And when natural advantages fail, some mammals fashion tools to help them out. This orangutan is working on a spoon to help him scoop ants out of a tree. Tool making was once thought to be a skill exclusive to the human mammal, but all great apes and some other animals make tools. So what separates us from the rest of the mammals? Our ability to communicate? To parent? To show emotion? Perhaps a better question is to ask what makes us all so alike.
It moves with 8 arms, pumps blue blood with 3 hearts, and changes color in an instant. Its flexible body fits through the tiniest cracks, while its brain sorts out tricky situations. With talents like these, it's hard to imagine a creature more intriguing than the octopus. Octopuses join squid, cuttlefish, and nautiluses in the class of invertebrates known as cephalopods. They are relatives of mollusks, such as oysters and clams. But unlike these mollusks, octopuses don't have hard shells to protect them. Their soft body makes them a target for many predators, so they spend much of their time in hiding. Most live inside dens or small caves at the bottom of the ocean. They usually stay in their lair unless they're searching for food. Once exposed, an octopus relies on several defenses. One of the best is its ability to camouflage. Special color cells all over its body control pigments in the skin and help it blend into the surroundings. If that doesn't work, an octopus squirts a murky ink at its attacker. The ink acts as a distraction when the octopus senses trouble. It also doesn't taste very good, which makes a hungry predator think twice. Being soft and flexible does have its advantages. Believe it or not, this octopus can squeeze its entire body into the bottle. Now it's perfectly protected. Unlike other invertebrates, an octopus can see images with its sharp sense of vision. But its primary sense is touch. Dozens of sensitive suckers line each of its arms. The skin of each sucker contains 3 kinds of cells. Some feel stretch, others feel pressure, but most detect chemicals, acting like taste buds. An octopus feels its way around the ocean floor, slowly bumping along. But in a flash, jet propulsion helps it shoot away. Back at the den, this octopus covers the entrance with rocks. These creatures have a large and highly developed brain, and they're capable of complex behaviors. Through trial and error, they eventually solve problems. This octopus figured out how to remove the plug from a jar. The prize is an unlucky crab trapped inside. Here in the lab, another octopus searches for a way out of the tank. They are master escape artists, and thanks to their strength, a 1-pound octopus can lift a 40-pound lid. Scientists debate whether behaviors like these are signs of intelligence. Octopuses are certainly unusual and fascinating to watch. It moves with 8 arms, pumps blue blood with 3 hearts, and changes color in an instant. Its flexible body fits through the tiniest cracks, while its brain sorts out tricky situations. With talents like these, it's hard to imagine a creature more intriguing than the octopus. Octopuses join squid, cuttlefish, and nautiluses in the class of invertebrates known as cephalopods. They are relatives of mollusks such as oysters and clams. But unlike these mollusks, octopuses don't have hard shells to protect them. Their soft body makes them a target for many predators, so they spend much of their time in hiding. Most live inside dens or small caves at the bottom of the ocean. They usually stay in their lair unless they're searching for food. Once exposed, an octopus relies on several defenses. One of the best is its ability to camouflage. Special color cells all over its body control pigments in the skin and help it blend into the surroundings. If that doesn't work, an octopus squirts a murky ink at its attacker. The ink acts as a distraction when the octopus senses trouble. It also doesn't taste very good, which makes a hungry predator think twice. Being soft and flexible does have its advantages. Believe it or not, this octopus can squeeze its entire body into the bottle. Now it's perfectly protected. Unlike other invertebrates, an octopus can see images with its sharp sense of vision. But its primary sense is touch. Dozens of sensitive suckers line each of its arms. The skin of each sucker contains 3 kinds of cells. Some feel stretch, others feel pressure, but most detect chemicals, acting like taste buds. An octopus feels its way around the ocean floor, slowly bumping along. But in a flash, jet propulsion helps it shoot away. Back at the den, this octopus covers the entrance with rocks. These creatures have a large and highly developed brain, and they're capable of complex behaviors. Through trial and error, they eventually solve problems. This octopus figured out how to remove the plug from a jar. The prize is an unlucky crab trapped inside. Here in the lab, another octopus searches for a way out of the tank. They are master escape artists, and thanks to their strength, a 1-pound octopus can lift a 40-pound lid. Scientists debate whether behaviors like these are signs of intelligence. Octopuses are certainly unusual and fascinating to watch.
Elephants are the largest of all land mammals. But they walked softly, on tiptoe, with thickly padded shock absorbers surrounding bone. Nose and upper lip stretch out into a long trunk, loaded with 150,000 muscles. This boneless limb acts as a hose, nose, and hand. The elephant's legs are adapted to support great weight on bones built like pillars. The evolution of this marvelous modern mammal began over 50 million years ago. Ancient ancestors looked more like pigs than elephants. Short legs, long body, and a stubby, flexible nose served these animals well enough in the marshy regions they called home. Over the next 10 to 20 million years, generation after generation of elephant ancestors increased in size, naturally selected for success in a changing environment. As they grew taller, the animal's lower jaw elongated beyond the upper and allowed them to continue to feed on the ground. Their snouts began to take the shape of a trunk and covered the lower jaw. Elephant heads weighted with heavier trunks needed the support of shorter, stiffer necks. But long lower jaws proved more cumbersome than a multitasking tubular limb. Trunks were naturally selected over droopy jaws and allowed the tall animals to feed, drink, bathe, and lift heavy objects. Nostrils shifted to the tip of the trunk. Now elephants had built-in snorkels and could breathe while submerged in water. Approaching predators could be sniffed out. Today, 2 species of elephants roam territories in Asia and Africa. The easiest way to tell the difference between them is to look at their ears. Asian elephants have smaller ears than African elephants. Natural selection makes each the right size. Elephant ears are actually giant cooling systems. As the elephants heat up, they are able to open more and more blood vessels in their ears. All 100 gallons of an elephant's blood can be run through the ears in 20 minutes. Flapping their ears cools the blood before it returns to the body. African elephants, exposed to longer periods of sun, need bigger cooling systems than Asian elephants. Random changes in the genetic makeup of each species allowed them to evolve for their specific environments.
Crawling around on 8 legs are some of the most fascinating invertebrates on Earth. More than 34,000 species of spiders roam every continent except Antarctica. These creepy creatures can survive almost anywhere, even in water, as long as food lives nearby. Spiders are members of the arachnid class that includes scorpions, ticks, and daddy longlegs. They differ from insects in several ways. Spiders walk on 8 legs, while insects have 6. They also have 2 body parts rather than 3. And unlike most insects, they don't rely on antennae or wings as they move around. They have other advantages instead. Best known for spinning webs of silk, many spiders use these webs to ensnare their victims. Silk comes from special glands located at the tip of their abdomen. Delicate and deadly, a spider's web traps almost anything that comes in its path. Flying insects are particularly vulnerable. Tiny hairs on the legs of spiders give them an acute sense of touch. They feel the vibrations of a victim and move toward the catch. Sometimes they save food for later by wrapping it in silk and storing it away. So how do spiders avoid getting stuck? Special claws on their legs help them hook on to silk strands and move around. They also make different kinds of silk, and some of it isn't sticky. Spiders depend on silk for many purposes. Besides catching and wrapping food, it protects their eggs, helps them climb, and provides a bit of shelter. While all spiders make silk, not all of them spin webs. Those that don't rely on highly developed senses to survive. With its sharp vision, the wolf spider lives on the forest floor in search of a catch. This green-leg spider lurks in the flower blossoms, ready to ambush its prey. All spiders kill their prey by dispatching powerful poisons through their fangs. But very few spider bites are actually dangerous to humans. Perhaps one reason we fear spiders has something to do with their looks. Thanks to its hairy legs and big body, this tarantula has a bad reputation. But to most people, its bite is no more harmful than a bee sting. Spiders are amazing predators that have survived for around 300 million years. They play an important role in their ecosystems. Without them, insect populations would spread out of control, killing crops and spreading disease. They also make a fine meal for other creatures. So the next time you want to get rid of a spider, think again. They might make our skin crawl, but they're more useful than we realize.
Animals, like people, must keep their body temperature within a certain range to survive. In the harshest environments, some have developed remarkable ways to cope with heat, and do just that. Elephants live in hot places, and evolved a number of mechanisms for keeping cool. One way is through its skin, which is several sizes too big for its body. Heat energy is lost through the skin, so the more skin, the better. The wrinkles that cover an elephant give it a greater area from which excess heat can escape. While these elephants play, they cool down in the muddy water. Mud collects in their folds and holds moisture near the skin when they leave the pool. This moisture gradually evaporates and cools the elephant over time, much like evaporating sweat cools us. But perhaps the most impressive system for beating the heat can be found in the elephant's ears. As this infrared camera shows in red, these ears radiate a lot of heat. When it's hot, blood vessels in the ears open and allow blood to cool as it flows within the paper-thin skin. Elephants flap their ears as a way of further cooling this blood. All the blood in an elephant, about 100 gallons, can be pumped through its ears in 20 minutes. The cooled blood travels through the rest of its system, cooling both its body and brain. At the coldest place on Earth, the few creatures that are able to survive face the opposite problem. they need to conserve heat energy. In Antarctica, temperatures rarely climb above freezing. But somehow, emperor penguins manage to keep warm. For one thing, they stick together. In brutal winds, they huddle in large groups and take turns standing in the middle. The insulation of others helps them reduce heat loss by almost half. A penguin's feathers are densely packed, overlapping, and waterproof. And it controls these feathers individually. When the temperature drops, it lifts its feathers upright to trap a layer of insulating air next to its body. Penguins have no choice but to stand on the ice on their bare feet. But fortunately, their feet are small and lined with fat. By rocking back on their heels, they keep their contact with the ice to a minimum. As their blood circulates, their body absorbs some of the heat before it reaches their feet. In this case, heat energy travels from the warmer bodies of penguins to the colder environment around them. These penguins need every defense they can get to survive. Oceans cover 70% of the Earth's surface and hold more than 20,000 species of fish. Of these, some 370 species are sharks. Long before dinosaurs existed, sharks roamed the waters. They first originated more than 400 million years ago and have changed very little in the last 100 million years. Today, few other species on Earth inspire so much respect and fear. These amazing predators sit at the top of the marine food chain. By weeding out the weak and injured, they help maintain a balanced ecosystem. Sharks are highly tuned hunting machines that rely on their specialized senses to catch prey. Using their sharp sense of hearing, they can detect sound vibrations up to 3,000 feet away. They are especially sensitive to the low-frequency pulses from struggling prey. The vibrations from this speaker sound like a wounded fish and send these sharks into a frenzy. As a shark gets closer to the catch, its sense of smell takes over. It can detect a single drop of blood in 25 gallons of water. Water flows through nostrils on the underside of its snout, giving the shark a steady stream of olfactory information. Near the snout, sharks also have tiny jelly-filled pores. They pick up electrical signals created when animals move. It's like an extra sense that helps sharks find prey, even when it's hiding in the sand. When we think of sharks, we can't help but think of their teeth. Sharks use and lose their teeth all the time. Some species shed as many as 30,000 during their lifetime, but replacements are always nearby. Rows of teeth make it possible for a new tooth to rotate in when needed. Besides their reputation, one thing that distinguishes sharks from other fish is their skeleton. It's made of tough, flexible cartilage instead of bone. Cartilage is lighter than bone, so the shark uses less energy as it swims than a bony fish does. Tough skin covers its streamlined body. Tiny teeth-like structures make the skin as rough as sandpaper and protect the shark from injury. These teeth point backward to reduce the drag of the water as the shark races through it. So many advantages make sharks one of the most efficient predators on Earth. Many of them are designed to attack, but not all of them do. In fact, most sharks are harmless to humans. We still have a lot to learn about these mysterious and misunderstood creatures. Scientists continue to unravel their secrets.